I miss you so much, Dad. When are you coming back to me and Mommy? I froze at the bedroom door. My heart clenched, like someone was squeezing it in their fist. Noah's little voice rang out, so pure, yet every word cut deep like a blade. Noah had never called anyone else Dad. The only person who should ever hear that sacred word from his lips was me. I took a deep breath, my fingers gripping the strap of my bag tight, but my hands wouldn't stop trembling. Something's not right. Who's Noah talking to? I stepped carefully onto the wooden floor, pressing myself against the slightly open bedroom door. I heard him whisper, his voice so soft it was like he didn't want anyone outside to hear. Mommy said I can only call you when Daddy's not home. But I miss you so much. I froze. A chill ran down my spine. Goosebumps crawled over my skin. She said, "Only call when I'm not home?" Why? I peeked through the crack in the door. Noah was sitting on the bed, clutching his iPad. The faint blue light from the screen lit up his little face. His bright blue eyes sparkled with joy. On the screen, a man I didn't recognize was smiling warmly. His voice was deep, calm, and, somehow, terrifyingly tender. "Soon, son, I promise." My knuckles turned white as I gripped the doorframe. That man wasn't me, but Noah. Noah called him Dad. A storm of questions crashed through my mind. Why is Noah calling that man Dad? Anna, my wife, what is she hiding from me? Have I never really been Noah's father? If I hadn't come home early that day, I might never have uncovered the secret Anna's kept from me for 7 years. And you, if you were in my shoes, what would you do? I used to believe I was a good husband, a good father, but tonight, hearing my son call another man Dad, I can't help but wonder, have I been nothing but a stranger, playing the role of a father in my own family for the past 7 years? My name is Elliot. I'm 38. 3 years ago, I left the military with a long scar on my left shoulder, a reminder of my last patrol in Afghanistan. That was the price I paid to come home. I thought I could start fresh, build a home for Claire and Lucas. Claire. She was gentle, brilliant, the only person who ever made me believe that a broken man like me could still be worthy of love. And Lucas. That little boy was the reason I got out of bed every morning. I can still remember the first time I held him in my arms. His big blue eyes stared up at me. And in that moment, I swore, from now on, you will never go a day without a father's love. But lately, something's changed. Claire comes home late more often now. Meetings, night shifts at school. Or so she says. Every time I try to hold her close, she just smiles faintly, her eyes drifting away from mine. Is it me? Was I too caught up in the workshop? Or did the war and its nightmares make me distant? I blame myself. I worked harder, tried to make up for it. But even Lucas started to feel different. One night, I heard him talking in his sleep. I just want to be with Dad and Mom. Back then, I thought he was missing the days when I was stationed overseas. But now, that innocent whisper echoes in my head like a warning. There was this one evening. I came home early because of a heavy rainstorm. Lucas's tiny shoes were neatly by the door, but Claire's high heels were caked in mud, as if she'd been rushing from somewhere before I got back. The bedroom door was ajar. Inside, I heard the chime of a text notification. I took a step forward, ready to call her name, but stopped when I heard her soft laugh, talking to someone on the phone. I miss you too. But you know, what if Elliot comes home early? My heart slammed against my ribs so hard it felt like my chest might burst open. And tonight, after hearing Lucas call another man Dad, all those scattered pieces began falling into place. Could it be that for 7 long years, I've been living in a beautiful lie? I thought I knew Claire. I thought I understood everything she felt, dreamed of, or ever wanted. But tonight, standing in my own home, I realized, maybe all this time, I've only known part of the truth. Since leaving the service, I've spent most of my days in the workshop. There, the sound of saws and sanders helped drown out the ghosts of war that still haunted me. Claire used to say she loved the scent of wood on my shirt when I came home. But lately, when I held her close, her eyes drifted away, as if searching for something else. One rainy evening, I waited for her to come home for dinner. I made her favorite stew, lit candles, even opened a bottle of red wine. But she didn't show up until after midnight. Her coat was soaked through, and her phone wouldn't stop buzzing in her pocket. "You didn't have to wait up. I already ate. We had a farewell party for a coworker at school," Claire said quickly, avoiding my eyes. When she went into the shower, her phone lit up on the table with a notification. A name appeared on the screen. Ryan. The message was short. "I miss you. Are you okay? Did he suspect anything?" I clenched my fists so tight my knuckles cracked. After that night, I started watching her more closely. She smiled more when she was texting. But with me, she was distant. Even Lucas seemed uneasy. When I asked him about his afternoons at school, he glanced at me, then at his mother, fear flickering in his eyes. Another evening, I came home earlier than expected. The door was locked, but the bedroom light was on. I opened the door quietly and stepped inside. Voices came from the bedroom. My heart pounded in my chest. I wish I could have met Lucas sooner. You know I've always wanted to be his father. A man's voice. "Shh. Don't say that. Elliot could come home any minute." Claire's voice. Trembling. I froze. My keys dug deep into my palm as I clenched my hand, leaving angry red marks on my skin. Silently, I walked to Lucas's room. He was fast asleep, clutching the teddy bear I'd given him for his 7th birthday. I reached out to stroke his soft hair, but pulled my hand back. A dark thought flashed through my mind. What if? This boy doesn't even carry my blood. I turned away, feeling like I was betraying the love I'd always had for him. Then, I heard another notification chime from Claire's phone, still lying on the kitchen counter. But this time, the message wasn't for her. It was sent to me. Ryan. Elliot, I don't know where to begin, but Claire and Lucas deserve to be with someone who truly loves them. I stood there, frozen. My chest felt crushed. I could barely breathe. He has my number and dares to text me like I never even existed in this family. Men like me don't cry, but tonight, I sat in the darkness for hours, silently asking myself, have I been nothing but a stranger in the story of my own family? I drove through the night, aimlessly wandering the dark streets of town. The dim yellow streetlights streaked across the windshield, casting a tired reflection of my face in the rearview mirror. The phone in my pocket kept buzzing. Messages from Claire. Messages from Ryan. I didn't read them. I didn't reply. Too many questions swirled in my head, cutting deeper with every thought. And I knew. I had to find the truth, even if the answer would tear me apart. The next morning, I went to a small clinic run by an old friend from the service, Mike. He's the head nurse now at the town hospital. Elliot, what brings you here? Mike asked, surprised to see me, worn out and hollow-eyed. Mike, I need you to help me with something. This has to stay between us. I placed a small envelope in front of him. Inside were a few strands of Lucas's hair I'd quietly taken from his comb. I want you to run a DNA test. I need to know if Lucas is really my son. Mike's eyes flickered with concern. Elliot, are you sure you want to know the truth? Mike, I have to. I can't go on living with these doubts. The 3 days waiting for the results felt like the longest of my life. I sat for hours by the window, watching Lucas play in the yard. His laughter was still as bright as ever. Daddy, look at me, watch this, he shouted with that pure, innocent voice. And my chest tightened until it hurt. If he isn't my son, will I still have the strength to love him the way I always have? I hated myself for letting such cruel questions take root in my mind, but I couldn't stop them. That night, I stood by Lucas's bed, watching him sleep. His tiny hands clutched the teddy bear I'd given him on his 7th birthday. I reached out to gently stroke his soft hair, but pulled my hand back. For 7 years, I thought I was the hero of this family, but maybe I was just a placeholder in their story. That evening, Claire came home late. I pretended to be asleep, but I heard her quiet footsteps moving through the bedroom. Her phone rang. It wasn't on silent this time. The screen lit up, Ryan calling. Claire tiptoed out into the hallway, whispering, "I know. I miss you too. But you understand, right? Elliot can't find out about this. He wouldn't be able to handle it." Then Ryan's deep, steady voice came through, clear as day. "You don't have to be afraid. When Elliot learns the truth, I'll bring you and Lucas to live with me." I lay there, tears soaking into my pillow, my hands clenched so tight, my nails dug deep into my palms. Turns out, even while I'm still alive, I've already been replaced. The next morning, Mike called. His voice was heavier than I'd ever heard it. "Elliot, can you come in? I'd rather not talk about this over the phone." My heart pounded, my chest heavy like a slab of stone had been laid on top of it. "Mike, just answer me one thing. Is Lucas really my son?" There was a long silence, and then Mike spoke softly. "Elliot, I'm so sorry." Mike placed the DNA test envelope in front of me, a small, plain white envelope. It looked harmless, but I knew. Inside, it was a bomb that could shatter my entire world. "Elliot, I'm truly sorry." Mike's voice was low, heavy. His eyes turned away from mine. I nodded silently. My mind was blank. My hands trembled as I reached for the envelope. But then, I let them fall. I didn't need to open it. I already knew the answer. From the night I overheard Claire and Ryan's conversation. Lucas wasn't my blood. I drove home in a daze. The road I'd traveled 1,000 times felt endless tonight. When I pulled into the driveway, I saw Lucas playing in the yard. His laughter was as pure and carefree as ever. When he saw me, his bright blue eyes lit up. "Dad, look! I just made the farthest flying paper plane ever." I forced a smile, raising my hand to wave back. But inside, my heart was breaking. Those aren't my eyes. They're another man's. That night, after putting Lucas to bed, I sat in the living room, waiting for Claire. The house was dark, lit only by the faint yellow glow of a table lamp. Claire stepped in, startled to see me. You're still up? We need to talk." My voice was cold, so cold I barely recognized it as my own. Claire sat across from me, gripping her glass of water tightly. Her eyes refused to meet mine. "You know, don't you?" she whispered, her voice trembling. I nodded. "Lucas isn't your son." The words fell from her lips as tears streamed down her face. For 7 years, I lived to protect this family. But the truth is, it was never really mine. "Why, Claire? Why did you let me live a lie for 7 years?" Claire broke down, sobbing. "You were deployed. I was lonely. Ryan came back. I never thought it would go this far. When I found out I was pregnant, I panicked. But Elliot, you have to believe me. I still love you. And Lucas, he loves you more than anyone in this world." I stood, my chest heavy, and walked to Lucas's room. He slept soundly, his little breaths soft and steady. I leaned down and kissed his silky hair. "You may not carry my blood, but you'll always be everything to me." Downstairs, Claire sat trembling, clutching her phone, tears still streaming down her cheeks. She called out, her voice cracking. "Ryan, I'm scared. Elliot knows everything." Ryan's voice came through the phone, deep and resolute. "Don't worry. I'll come for you and Lucas. Get ready." Elliot stood in the shadows at the top of the stairs, hand gripping the banister tight. His heavy eyes stared down at Claire, shivering as she spoke on the phone. "Maybe it's time I face the man who's trying to take my family away." I stayed awake the entire night. The rain tapped steadily against the roof, blending with the wind howling through the window frame. It felt like the storm inside me was screaming out loud. Claire had fallen asleep on the couch, her eyes swollen and red, her face pale with exhaustion. She still clutched her phone tightly in her hand. The screen was dark now, but I knew. The last person she called before passing out wasn't me. It was Ryan. The next morning, I was in the workshop when the sound of a car horn startled me. I stepped outside, and my chest tightened as I saw him standing there. Ryan. He was half a head taller than me, dressed sharply in a crisp white shirt and polished leather shoes. His eyes met mine, calm but unwavering. "We need to talk." His voice was deep, steady. I gave a slight nod and stepped aside to let him in. Two men sat across from each other in the quiet living room. Neither of us spoke for several minutes. The only sound was the ticking of the clock on the wall. Finally, Ryan broke the silence. "I know you've learned everything. Elliot, I'm not here to start a fight. I'm here because of Claire. And Lucas." My chest tightened at the sound of my son's name coming from his lips. "You think you have the right to come here? And demand anything?" My voice was low, each word controlled like a loaded trigger. Ryan didn't flinch. He placed a phone on the table, the screen lighting up. It was a picture. Lucas, hugging his iPad tightly. On the screen, Ryan's face. Lucas's smile was radiant, his bright eyes glowing as he called out, "Dad." For 7 years, I survived a war to keep this family together. But it turns out, it was never really mine. I gripped my coffee mug so tightly, my knuckles turned white. A thin crack spread across the ceramic, but I didn't let go. "What do you want, Ryan?" My voice was sharp, cold as ice. Ryan answered, his tone firm. "I know I've made mistakes, but Elliot, Lucas is my son, and I love Claire. I'm here to take them with me." I slammed the mug down onto the table. Coffee spilled over, dripping onto the wooden floor. "I went through hell to protect this family. Don't force me to fight another war, Ryan." My voice was deep, steady, but my eyes were cold enough to make Ryan hesitate. Ryan inhaled sharply, but didn't back down. "You can't keep Lucas from me forever. He deserves to know who his real father is." The room fell silent. Two men, locked eyes. The tension stretched thin, like a wire about to snap. The room was suffocatingly silent. Ryan still stood there, the image of Lucas clutching his iPad, his bright smile and innocent voice calling out, "Dad," glowing on the phone screen like a blade twisting deeper into my chest. Claire pressed herself against the wall, her hand covering her mouth, trying to stifle her sobs. "You can't keep Lucas forever." Ryan's voice broke the silence, low, steady, but unyielding. "The boy has a right to know who his real father is." I lifted my head, my eyes locking onto his. Each word came out slow and sharp, like ice. "You think, just because of blood, you deserve to be his father?" Ryan swallowed hard, but didn't falter. "Being a father isn't just about bringing a child into this world. It's about caring for him, loving him. Elliot, I want to do that too." I rose to my feet, stepping toward Ryan. "Where were you when Claire was pregnant? Where were you when Lucas took his first steps? When he burned with fever in the middle of the night? Who ran 5 miles to find a doctor?" "That was me." Claire's voice broke like a frayed string snapping. Through choked sobs, she whispered, "Elliot, I'm sorry, but I can't live like this anymore. I need to be happy too." I spun around, my gaze turning to steel. "You're leaving? With him?" Claire bowed her head, silent. "Maybe this is the last battle of my life, but this time, I'm not fighting for my country. I'm fighting for the boy who calls me Dad." Ryan stepped forward, reaching a hand toward Claire, but his eyes drifted to Lucas. The boy slept peacefully on the sofa, clutching his teddy bear. I clenched my fists so tight my nails dug into my palms, drawing blood. My voice dropped low, each word sharp as a blade. Fatherhood isn't about a single day, it's about a lifetime, and for his whole life, Lucas will have only one father. Ryan froze, his hands suspended in the air, his eyes locked with mine, the tension between us tight as a wire about to snap. Then, tiny footsteps echoed on the stairs. "Daddy." Lucas's soft voice broke the moment, sending a shiver through all three of us. The boy stood there, clutching his teddy bear, his wide eyes full of confusion as he looked at the scene before him. "Mommy, who's that man? Why is Daddy crying?" I turned away, blinking back the sting in my eyes, forcing the lump in my throat down. "Go back to your room, son. Daddy will come up soon." My voice trembled, but stayed gentle. Lucas nodded slowly, his little face still clouded with confusion. As his small figure disappeared behind the door, I took a deep breath. My gaze hardened, steady as stone. Ryan, this isn't about you and me anymore. This is my family. The air in the room was thick, so heavy it felt like I could choke on it. I could hear my own blood pounding in my ears, every beat in my chest like it was about to explode. Ryan stood firm in front of me, the posture of a man who'd made up his mind. Claire stepped back, her trembling hands clasped tightly together. Her tear-filled eyes darted between us, pleading, afraid, torn. I took a deep breath, forcing my hands to stay steady even as the world around me seemed to spin. You can't keep Lucas forever. Ryan's voice broke the silence, low, steady, unyielding. The boy has a right to know who his real father is. I lifted my head, my eyes locking onto his. Each word left my mouth slow and sharp, like cold steel. You think, just because of blood, you deserve to be his father? Ryan pressed his lips together, but his voice stayed calm, resolute. Being a father isn't about creating a child. It's about staying, loving, and showing up. Elliot, I want to do that too. I shot to my feet. The chair scraped loudly across the wooden floor, the sound slicing through the tense air. Where were you when Claire was pregnant? Where were you when Lucas took his first steps? When he burned with fever in the middle of the night? Who ran 5 miles in the rain to find a doctor? That was me. Ryan's jaw tightened, his hand clenching in his pocket. His voice softened slightly, as though he was struggling to speak. You don't understand, Elliot. Claire once told me, Lucas looks more like you than me. My chest tightened. The room seemed to tilt around me. What are you saying? I growled the words through gritted teeth. I'm not even sure Lucas is mine, but I still want to claim him, even if the test says he's not, because I've already lost so much. My youth, my sleep, my peace. But I still have Lucas. If I lose him, I lose myself. Ryan stepped forward, reaching slightly toward Claire, but his gaze shifted, landing on Lucas, sleeping soundly on the sofa, clutching his teddy bear. I clenched my fists so tightly, my nails cut into my palms. Blood welled up. I took a slow step toward Ryan. My voice dropped low, each word slicing the air. You're 7 years too late, Ryan, and for 7 years, Lucas has learned to call me Dad. No one will take that away from him. Ryan froze, his hands suspended in the air. His eyes locked onto mine, the tension between us pulled taut like a wire about to snap. Then, tiny footsteps echoed from the stairs. Daddy! Lucas's soft voice cut through the air, freezing all three of us. The boy stood there, clutching his teddy bear, his wide eyes filled with confusion as he took in the scene before him. Mommy! Who is that man? Why is Daddy crying? I turned away, blinking back the tears stinging my eyes. Forcing the lump in my throat down, I spoke gently. Go back to your room, son. Daddy will be there soon. Lucas nodded slowly, his little face still puzzled. When his small figure disappeared behind the door, I drew in a deep breath. My gaze hardened, unshaken. Ryan, this isn't about you and me anymore. This is my family. The sound of Lucas's door closing echoed softly, leaving the living room drenched in a heavy, suffocating silence. I stood there, my shoulders weighed down as if I were carrying the whole world, my eyes fixed on my hands. These hands had once pulled Claire out of her darkness, had lifted Lucas high in the air and promised him, Daddy will always be here. And now, that promise felt like it was about to shatter. If I lose Lucas, what's left of me? I've already lost my youth, my sleep, and pieces of myself out there on the battlefield. But Lucas, he's the only reason I'm still standing. I turned away, biting my lip until it bled, forcing back the sobs clawing at my throat. But the tears wouldn't listen. They spilled, hot and unrelenting, hitting the cold wooden floor below. I'm sorry, Lucas. I wasn't strong enough to hold on to you, but I'll love you until my very last breath. I took a deep breath and turned to face Ryan and Claire. My voice was hoarse but calm, almost too calm. "Ryan, you might be his biological father, but fatherhood isn't just blood. It's sleepless nights. It's wiping away tears. It's when that little hand reached for mine and called me Dad." I looked at Claire, her tear-soaked eyes meeting mine. "I once promised to protect you, but maybe I didn't do enough. If you truly believe leaving is the only way for you and Lucas to find happiness, I won't stop you." Claire broke down, her hand trembling as she covered her mouth. Ryan stood frozen, his eyes a mix of confusion and gratitude. "You came 7 years too late, Ryan, and for 7 years, Lucas has learned to call me Dad. Nothing will ever change that." The next morning, the house felt emptier than ever. The sound of an engine rumbled outside. I stood by the window, my eyes wet, watching the car slowly pull away, carrying Claire and Lucas with it. Suddenly, Lucas turned back, peering out the window. His small lips moved, forming a word: "Daddy." Then the car disappeared around the corner, vanishing from sight. I placed a hand over my chest, feeling my heart pounding, my breath caught in my throat. "I may not be there with you every day, but you'll always be my flesh, my blood, the best part of me that's left in this world." The house had never felt this quiet. Lucas's half-finished glass of milk still sat on the table. The old teddy bear he used to clutch while sleeping lay abandoned on the sofa. But the laughter, the sound of little feet pounding across the floor every afternoon, all of it was gone. I stepped into Lucas's room. The faint scent of milk lingered in the air, a cruel reminder that this used to be my whole world. And now, it was empty. "They're gone. Claire. Lucas." I once thought losing blood on the battlefield was the worst pain a man could endure. But no. The pain of walking into a silent house, of calling out your child's name and hearing no reply, that's what truly kills a man. I looked down at my hands. The calluses from years in the workshop were still there, but they couldn't hide the tremble. For 7 years, I was his whole world. But now, that world no longer needs me. The sound of an engine rumbled outside. I looked up, my chest tightening as I saw Ryan standing there. He no longer wore the crisp white shirt or polished shoes. In a gray t-shirt, with a tired face, he looked like a father genuinely worried. "Elliot, we need to talk. One last time." Ryan's voice had lost its edge. I nodded, walking slowly toward the workshop. We sat across from each other on the wooden steps. The evening breeze rustled the trees, carrying with it the scent of sawdust and dying embers from a half-burned pile of wood. Ryan took a deep breath. "I know you hate me, but Elliot, I want to thank you for raising Lucas these past 7 years." I stayed silent, my gaze fixed on the distance. My voice came out low and rough. "Lucas isn't a gift to be passed around. He's my whole life." Ryan lowered his head, his voice tight with emotion. "I'm not here to take him away. I'm only asking, please, let me be a part of Lucas's life from now on." I clenched my fists so hard my nails dug into my skin. Then slowly, I loosened my grip. "You may be his biological father, but for 7 years, I've been Lucas's whole world." Ryan looked up, his eyes burning with intensity. "If one day Lucas turns to me and calls me Dad, what will you do, Elliot?" I met his gaze, unblinking. A single tear slid down my cheek, falling onto the faded scar on my hand. The room fell silent. The ticking of the clock suddenly felt deafening. Ryan kept his eyes locked on mine, a gaze that was both resolute and heavy with guilt. "If one day Lucas turns to me and calls me Dad, what will you do, Elliot?" The question cut through me like a blade, twisting deep in my chest. I used to think I was strong, but maybe the hardest thing a man can ever do is accept that he's no longer the whole world to the child who once called him Dad. I stepped outside, standing still in front of the workshop. The cold wind stung my face, making my eyes burn. My hands clenched, then loosened again. I let the tears fall freely onto my dust-covered boots. "I'm sorry, Lucas. I tried to keep you close, but if your happiness doesn't include me, I'll learn to let you go." My chest tightened as a sob caught in my throat. I turned back to Ryan. This time, my voice was low, steady, but no longer angry. "You may be his biological father, but being a father means loving a child so much you're willing to break so they can stay whole." Ryan's lips parted, but no words came. His hand trembled. "You'd really let me into Lucas's life," he whispered. I took a deep breath. My eyes were red and swollen, but steady. "I won't stand in your way, if that's what makes him happy. But remember this, Ryan. Lucas doesn't need two men fighting over him. He needs two men loving him." Just then, the car door creaked open. Lucas stepped out, clutching his teddy bear, his wide eyes searching for me. "Daddy." His little voice was soft, but it hit me like a hammer. He ran straight into my arms. I dropped to my knees, wrapping him tightly in my embrace. The warmth of his tiny body pressed against me, making my heart ache. "Don't be sad, Daddy. I still love you," Lucas whispered into my ear. I held him tighter, tears sliding down into his soft hair. "I know, son. And I love you too. More than my own life." Lucas pulled away gently and ran back to the car. I stood, watching, as the vehicle rolled forward, slowly disappearing down the road. Just before it turned the corner, Lucas looked back through the glass, his lips forming a word, "Daddy." Then the car vanished. Maybe he won't call me Dad every day anymore, but in his heart, I was once his hero, and that's enough to keep me going. The house was still, eerily still. Lucas's small pillow lay untouched on the sofa, faintly indented where a little boy once curled up, clutching his teddy bear, fast asleep. I reached out and brushed my hand against it, my fingers trembling, as if I were afraid to disturb the fragile memories lingering there. The day Claire left with Lucas, I thought it would break me, but somehow, I kept breathing. Turns out, pain doesn't kill you. It just quietly changes you forever. Being a father, sometimes it's not about holding on. It's about having the courage to put your child's happiness above your bleeding heart. I found my way back to the workshop. The calloused hands that once built cradles and toys began to remember their rhythm again, chiseling, sanding, shaping wood. I made a small chair, the kind Lucas had always dreamed of sitting in, beside me, watching me work with wide-eyed wonder. Each night, I wrote letters to him, letters I never sent. I kept them in a drawer, hoping one day he'd read them and understand. No matter where you are, son, Dad is still here, watching over you. One late afternoon, I walked to the park, near my house. In the corner of the playground, I saw a little boy clumsily climbing up the slide, small frame, messy hair, and laughter that carried on the wind. My chest tightened. Lucas. I froze in place, watching from a distance. I didn't call out. I didn't move closer. Ryan sat nearby, his gaze soft, as he watched Lucas play. Claire smiled as she bent down to wipe a smudge of dirt from his cheek. Suddenly, Lucas looked up. His wide eyes scanned the park until they landed on me. For a moment, he stood still. Then, his face lit up. "Daddy!" His voice rang out, clear and sweet across the playground. He jumped off the slide and ran towards me, his tiny legs pumping hard. But just a few steps in, Claire gently caught his hand. "Lucas, don't. Let Daddy rest." Her voice was soft, almost a whisper. Lucas turned to her, his eyes glistening with tears. He hugged his teddy bear tight, then looked back at me. For a moment, we simply stared at each other. A long, endless moment. Lucas smiled. And then, he raised his little hand and waved. I lifted my hand and waved back, my vision blurring in the cool evening breeze. Maybe he won't call me Dad every day anymore, but in his heart, I was once his hero, and for me, that's enough. I turned and walked away, the sound of children's laughter trailing behind me, a sad, tender melody in the fading light. Being a father, sometimes it's not about keeping your child close. It's about learning to let go so they can be happy. But if one day Lucas calls another man Dad, Will I be strong enough to smile?